Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of us as Christians
Yeah.
really think about and wrestle with, and that is
Mm-hmm.
how can we naturally bring conversations
Mm.
about Jesus into like our everyday lives,
Yeah.
into our conversations with family and friends
Completely.
and people we meet. It's this desire to share something that's so
Mm.
deeply personal to us without it feeling
Yeah.
forced or awkward or
Right.
like a total change of subject.
Yeah.
Maybe you've felt that kind of tug to share, but just haven't been sure
Like, where do I even,
how to navigate
yeah,
it.
how to bring it up? It's
Yeah.
it's tough. It's a tough thing to figure out sometimes.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've got excerpts from a really cool book
Okay.
called Everyday Conversations with Jesus. And
Interesting.
we're going to be pulling out some of the most like helpful and real world insights on
Yeah.
how we can actually make talking about our faith like a natural part of
Yeah.
our regular everyday interactions,
Yeah.
moving past any sense of like obligation or stiffness. Like I said,
Right.
we want to give you guys some clear pathways to like actually integrate your faith into
Mm.
regular discussions, in a way that like truly reflects who you are and what
Yeah.
you believe.
It's just
And
being authentic.
yeah, being authentic to who you are.
Yeah.
So the book starts with like a core idea
Okay.
that really resonated with me.
Okay.
And it's that talking about Jesus really like spontaneously flows from
Mm-hmm.
our own personal connection with him,
Okay.
like our own personal relationship with him. And it
Mm.
brings up Matthew 12.34,
Okay.
where it says, "For the mouth speaks what
Yeah.
the heart is full of." So,
Mm.
like, what's the biggest takeaway from that verse for us in this context?
I think the core insight there is that, like, what you're truly passionate about,
Yeah.
what really excites you,
Uh-huh.
what you love, what you care about,
Mm-hmm.
it just naturally comes up in conversation.
Yeah.
Like if you found an amazing new coffee shop,
Right.
you know.
I'm going to tell everybody about it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to mention it to your friends
Yeah.
without even a second thought
Yeah.
because you're genuinely enthusiastic about it.
Yeah. You're excited to share it.
Right. And it's the same principle
Yeah.
with our faith, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when our hearts are full of Jesus,
Yeah.
when we're spending time with him
Mm-hmm.
in prayer, in his word,
Yeah.
just being in his presence,
Yeah.
that relationship becomes like the wellspring of our lives.
Yeah.
It becomes the overflow.
Yeah. It's like you're so full of it, it
Yeah.
naturally comes out.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's about, like you said, that like nurturing that personal walk with Jesus
Mhm.
so that sharing flows naturally from that connection.
Right. And it takes the prayer off
Yeah.
of feeling like we have to force it
Yeah.
or manufacture these conversations.
Yeah.
It becomes
It becomes more organic, right?
organic. Exactly.
yeah.
It's just an outpouring.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next thing that the book talks about is
Okay.
looking for open doors.
Uh-huh.
So what does that practically look like in our conversations?
So that's about being attentive and present,
Yeah.
in our everyday interactions. And the book brings up Colossians 4:5 to 6,
Okay.
which says to be wise in the way you act toward outsiders, make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace seasoned with salt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about recognizing that God can create these natural openings in
Yeah.
our conversations.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily about like shoehorning like Jesus into every single conversation, but it's about being aware
Yeah.
that like God might present those manners.
Absolutely. And being sensitive
Yeah.
to the Holy Spirit's leading,
Mm-hmm.
because
Absolutely.
he's the one who orchestrates these divine appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be ready.
Yeah. So like some of the examples that the book gives are like, okay, let's say you're talking to a friend who's super stressed out about
Mhm.
something. How can that become an open door to talk about
Right.
our faith?
So when someone's sharing their burdens, their
Yeah.
anxieties, their struggles,
Mm.
it often reveals a deep need for comfort
Yeah.
and peace.
Yeah.
And so while it's not about, giving a sermon
Right.
at that moment,
Mm-hmm.
it could be a gentle opportunity
Mm.
to share how you personally
Mm-hmm.
find peace in God.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could mention a specific verse
Yeah.
that's been encouraging to you
Yeah.
or a personal experience
Mm-hmm.
of how God has helped you through a difficult time.
Yeah.
It's about connecting your faith
Mm-hmm.
to their real life emotions and needs.
Yeah, and showing them that like our faith is practical, right?
Exactly. It's not
Yeah.
just a theory.
Yeah.
It's something that helps us
Yeah.
navigate the challenges of life.
Exactly. And another example is
Yeah.
if someone is maybe struggling with a sense of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
that's something so many people I feel like wrestle with these days.
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
Like, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah, what am I
What am
try-
I here for?
Yeah, what am I doing here? What's the point of all this?
Right.
So how can we approach that kind of conversation from a faith perspective?
So I think when someone's expressing that kind of searching,
Mm-hmm.
it opens a door
Yeah.
to share the hope and direction
Yeah.
that Jesus brings,
Yeah.
to our lives. And again, it doesn't have to be this big theological explanation.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as sharing how your faith gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of value
Yeah.
that goes beyond just, your career.
Right. Yeah. It's not just about
Worldly success.
worldly success. Yeah. It's about something so much bigger.
Yes.
Absolutely. And even just like those general everyday conversations, like
Yeah.
talking about your day or the challenges you're facing or the things you're celebrating.
Yeah.
Even those can have like these little opportunities woven in, right?
Absolutely, because our faith informs
Yeah.
our perspective.
Yeah.
It guides our decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we're talking about our lives,
Mm-hmm.
it's natural for our faith
Yeah.
to kind of weave its way into the conversation.
Yeah. It's like a natural part of our story, right?
Exactly. It's part of who we are. It's
Yeah.
not something separate.
Yeah.
It's integrated into everything.
Okay. So the next point the book brings up, I think, is super important.
Okay.
And it's about asking questions
Mm-hmm.
and like really, truly listening.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so crucial.
Yeah. And obviously this is important for like any conversation.
Right.
But how does it relate specifically to like sharing our faith?
I think it makes it less about us
Yeah.
and more about them.
Mm-hmm.
It's about showing genuine interest
Mm-hmm.
in their lives, in their experiences,
Yeah.
and in their perspective.
Yeah.
And even their beliefs,
Yeah.
It's like James 1:19 says, be quick to listen, slow to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think we often forget that we get so excited to share what we believe
Mm-hmm.
that we forget to actually listen to where the other person is coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. So by genuinely trying to understand where
Yeah.
someone else is coming from,
Right.
we can build a much stronger connection,
Right.
even if we disagree on things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it creates a safe space for them to open up
Yeah,
and share their heart.
absolutely.
And when people feel heard and understood,
Mm-hmm.
they're much more likely to be open
Yeah.
to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just to add to that, like showing genuine care and empathy, I
Yeah.
think can make like such a huge difference
It's
in
huge.
how people receive our message.
Absolutely. 'Cause
Yeah.
it shows that we're not just trying to win an argument.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We actually care about them
Yeah.
as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like people can sense that, right?
They can. Absolutely.
Like, know when you're being genuine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they know when you're not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. And then the final point that we want to touch on from the book
Okay.
is about addressing like the fear
Mm-hmm.
of speaking up about our faith.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of us struggle with that,
For sure.
and
Intimidating.
yeah, it's really intimidating,
Yeah.
especially in a world where sometimes, our faith isn't always popular or accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the book quotes Romans 1:16,
Okay.
which says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel,
Yeah.
because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes."
Mm.
So, like, how can reflecting on this verse help us overcome that fear?
Well, I think it reminds us of the significance of what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
The gospel,
Yeah.
the good news of Jesus
Mm-hmm.
is the power of God
Yeah.
for salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And when we remember that,
Yeah.
it gives us courage,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to speak up.
Yeah. And it also reminds us that, like, it's not ultimately up to us to, like, convince anyone.
Yeah, it's God's work.
Yeah, it's God's work, and it's the Holy Spirit's work to
Yeah.
convict people and draw people to himself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
We don't have to be, like, perfect theologians or anything like that.
Yeah, I think sometimes we put that pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, we totally do. Yeah.
Like we have to have every answer
Yeah.
to every question.
Yeah.
But the reality is
Yeah.
we don't.
Yeah.
And it's okay
Yeah.
to say, I don't know,
Yeah.
or let me get back to you on that.
Yeah. Or like, this has been my personal experience,
Exactly.
and I feel like sharing our own personal experiences
Yeah.
is so powerful.
It's the main powerful thing.
Yeah.
Because it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's relatable.
Yeah. And I think people can sense that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the final point I think on this is that we can trust in the Holy Spirit to like guide our words and to guide the timing of when we share things.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Because it takes the pressure off of us.
Yes. Absolutely.
We don't have to feel like we have to orchestrate everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the one who opens doors. He's the one who prepares hearts.
Yeah.
We just have to be willing and available.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how the book closes this section by asking this question.
Yeah.
What if, like, that one conversation, that one little seed that you plant
Mm-hmm.
could be the very thing that leads someone to Jesus?
Wow.
Like, that's powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a good reminder
Yeah.
that we may not always see the immediate results
Mm-hmm.
of our conversations,
Right.
but every seed we plant
Yeah.
has the potential
Yeah.
to bear fruit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's about being faithful to like
Yeah.
share what God has put on our hearts
Yeah.
and trusting that it'll do the rest.
Yeah. And not getting discouraged if we don't see immediate results.
Absolutely. So, just to like quickly recap
Okay.
some of the key insights that we've gleaned from this book, Everyday Conversations with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts with our own personal relationship with Jesus,
Right.
Making sure that's like our foundation.
The foundation.
Yeah. And then from there,
Mhm.
we can look for those open doors that God provides
Mhm.
in our conversations.
Mhm.
We prioritize listening to people
Yeah.
and asking thoughtful questions
Mm-hmm.
to connect with them on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we overcome that fear
Yeah.
of speaking up
Right.
about our faith, trusting in the power of the gospel
Mm-hmm.
and the guidance of the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely.
And I love how the book kind of brings it all together by referencing
Okay.
Colossians 4.6 again.
Yeah.
Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
So how would you unpack that idea of our conversation being seasoned with salt?
So I think it means making our message
Mm-hmm.
engaging, relevant, appealing.
Yeah.
Like salt adds flavor
Yeah.
to food.
Yeah.
Our words should add flavor to the
Ah.
conversation.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, They should be interesting. They should be thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
They should be something that people actually want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to that idea of like
Yeah.
really knowing the person you're talking to
Mhm.
and knowing how to like speak their language.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Meet them where they are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think when we do that,
Yeah.
when we're sensitive to their needs,
Mhm.
to their interests,
Yeah.
our conversations become much more effective.
Yeah. And I think so much of it comes down to like genuineness,
Yes.
authenticity. Yeah. And just like
Yeah.
coming from a place of love.
Love.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as you guys navigate your week ahead,
Yeah.
I encourage you to like think about the everyday conversations that you're going to be having.
Yeah.
You know, consider how these principles might apply in those moments.
Yeah.
What potential open doors might you encounter? And even like maybe just think about one small, genuine thing
Yeah.
that you could share about your faith if the opportunity comes up naturally.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like we said before, like we truly never know the impact
That's right.
that even a brief, heartfelt sharing could have on someone.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing to think about.
Yeah. It's really cool.
The ripple effect
Yeah.
of our words.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.